Analyst, welcome to Q News. Mr. Babak, the FT suggests that Starmer's failure is historically necessary, I quote and unquote. Is this simply a harsh take, or is there truth in the idea that failure is needed to force reform?
Well, thank you for your question. First, let's look at mass politics, because mass politics is different to elite politics. If you go one stage further back, humans have always had some sort of democracy. Even autocratic systems have some sort of democracy within their own group. So this idea that democracy is a new thing is not. It's been around with us for a very long time. But mass politics is a new experiment. It arrived around 200 years ago, and gradually over 200 years, it has lowered the average of representation. So 200 years ago, when mass politics came, the masses had to choose from the elites. Over the time, they've been choosing more and more of their own kind of masses, of average. So now 200 years later, most of the representatives are average people. They're not elites. And perhaps this experiment, the liberal democracy on mass politics, is a failure. And 200 years experiment in the recorded history of mankind over 5,000 years, it's a very little time. So maybe perhaps we are at that stage, but there is a lot more. So I'll follow that up later on.
Okay. So in your opinion, how much of Labour's current underperformance is ideological versus structural limitations of Britain's state and economy?
Fine. Okay. So let's again look at the politics. Politics was a serious business, but now it has become a sort of a entertainment contest. That's what we see. Politics is an entertainment context. And
in what way, Mr. Babak? In what way?
Okay, thank you very much. In a way that we are not electing, or I should go back one stage further.
Okay.
Before election.
For us to understand, I just need to follow with you.
No, fine.
Yes.
Please interrupt me anytime and ask me any question.
Thank you.
Before, because I'm part of the political system and I worked from the bottom to the top. So before election, there is a selection process that starts from local association. And it's usually between 8 or 10 people in the association who would decide who should represent the constituency.
Okay.
Usually,
this is the voting system we're talking here?
Sorry?
The voting system? Is it the voting?
Yes. So
voting system.
At the beginning, there is no election. It's election by the local association who should be representing the party, whether it's Conservative Party, Liberal Democrat Party, or Labour Party. So the first part of it is not much of an election, but a selection. And I believe the failure is there. They are the people, the associations committees are selecting people who would look good, they're entertaining, and they look good on television, or they are funny.
Okay, so I understand now. I use the term entertaining politics. Now I get it. Okay, please go ahead.
So then both parties do the same thing, because if one represents a serious person, which could be boring, and the other one puts an entertaining guy, and usually masses like entertainment, so they win. So then the other party is forced also to put an entertaining person. So the whole systems become corrupt.
Yes.
So from the set. And I think this is where we are facing. And then there is that issue of diversity, where they're not looking for the best person. There is no meritocracy in the selection process, but lots of diversity. Let's have a diverse person who represents different communities. And that person who might in many ways represent different communities, being a woman, being non-white, for example, being of a different sexual orientation, and so on and so that might work in this way. and also being from an ethnic background, that might work in some ways. So they choose that person because not only they say we have the mainstream,
Not
but
because of competence, but rather to achieve diversity. Okay.
God bless you. And suddenly you see people representing the community who have little, but they are good on representation level, rather than actually have the ability to manage the country, manage the policy. That's why a lot of politicians now, they consider the real job, the hard part of the job, winning the election, not actually governance. That's why now you see most of them are failing at governance continuously. For the last 15 years, all members of British government, either party, have failed at governance, but they've been successful in winning elections.
Okay, I get your point. But back again to British politics, do you think that Starmer misled voters with pro-growth messaging that he never really intended to follow through on?
Well, let's look at the history of Sir Keir Starmer. He was a public prosecutor, so he had no experience in government, and mostly he had no experience in business, economy, and international trade. Now, whoever becomes a leader of any country, their first job is to bring in money into the country. That's their first job. It's been like this for 5,000 years. Previously, they used to have wars. They would go and have a war with another country to steal their wealth or bring them into their country. Now we have trade treaties, we have negotiations, we have inward investment. We become more civilized, but the same strategy. But you look at it, now all European leaders are incapable of having inward investment into the countries. And majority of the investments are within the country, within the European countries themselves, and that very little also, nothing outside of Europe. President Trump, on the other hand, is the old-fashioned leader, I would call him. So far, he has secured something like between 15 to 17 trillion of inward investment into USA. And none of the Europeans are admiring that. They're against it. So that's when you call about the failure of leadership. I think Keir Starmer does not have that ability. And may I just add this? The Rishi Sunak, he didn't have that ability either, because there is that system, railway system called HS2, High Speed 2 train. And it only required 50 billion pound of inward investment, 50 billion, not huge amount. He could not secure that. So they had to cancel that. So when you find President Trump, $17 trillion, and then just 50, which is a very small amount. And this is why a British Prime Minister cannot secure inward investment, then that's where you see the failure of the system.
Yes. Now, if Starmer is the end of an era figure, what comes next? Is Britain ready for a Margaret Thatcher style disruptor? You remember the Iron Woman, or something even more radical?
Well, the more history goes by, we think Margaret Thatcher was so exceptional. It was a fluke. Because you would have thought all leaders would be like Margaret Thatcher. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, even though they were from opposite party, they carried her policy through, mostly. But it is very interesting. The new Conservative Party, the class of 2010, 15 years ago, they rejected all her policies. For example, home ownership. They went against home ownership. The home ownership, the number of houses which were bought and sold in 2007 was 1.8 million. So 1.8 million houses were bought and sold in England, in United Kingdom, in Britain. Now that figure, since then, it has averaged only about 1 million per year. So it's something like 45% below 2008, even though the population has gone up. So even we look at just the first policy, the housing policy, it is there. It is in the books. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
But they just don't want to commit to it.
Yes.
And that's the puzzle.
Yes. So do you see potential in parties like the Reform UK or Splinter movements to take advantage of the growing disillusionment? Do you think that Britain or the British people believe in a different type of politics coming next?
That's a great question. So you would say, where do we start the reform? My suggestion would be the reform will start actually outside the politics. It starts with the media. In Britain, 70% of journalists are from left of politics, and media is mostly controlled by the left of politics. So they promote left of politics policies, whether on economy or on fringe policies, whether from transgender, woke, or other policies. That's what they do. So I think unless we have to correct that imbalance in media, where we should have more people from the right in politics, in media, and this way, then they could actually start watching the politics. And then again, I go back, we should somehow make politics a serious business, less of a entertainment contest. And also the reform side of it should come from selection process. So there should be a minimum a floor for people to be representing a community.
Okay. Some people say that Labour's real weakness is the absence of a clear economic narrative. What kind of story or ideology would resonate now? What kind of economic understanding are the British people looking for right now?
Well, British people want peace and prosperity. And right now, the Labour government is not offering that because they have no plan for economy. And also they have no plan for geopolitics. Let's take Ukraine war.
Yes.
They are championing Ukraine war all the time, which it's an unwinnable war. It has caused so much misery. And the first misery is it has increased the cost of energy. And the cost of energy is the biggest contributor to inflation. And the sooner that is resolved, the sooner, very quickly, the energy prices would drop, and then the inflation would drop, and then the interest rate would drop. And we could all start improving the economy much quicker. But there is no appetite right now for peace in Ukraine because it's a great deflection for the politicians, whether British or Europeans, and they can play grandeur with that, look good on talking about we are fighting for democracy and freedom in Ukraine, while Ukraine issue was just a border dispute, which should have been resolved, as President Trump said, immediately rather than turning it into a European war and possibly a nuclear war. So there is that mismanagement. And it again comes because our representatives are mostly young and experienced and have little background in geopolitics or international trade.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Babak Emamian, for that compelling analysis.